You know, I think I've read enough. It's time to finally talk about why the One Piece Anime Heroes figures are good.
It's morphin' time!
Hello, this is Soundout here, and on today's video we're going to talk about why I think Bandai's Anime Heroes One Piece line is actually good, and I think it gets a lot of flack online for unjustified reasons. So for context, Bandai's Anime Heroes line is a spin-off from Dragon Stars, which was a more basic Dragon Ball line than SH Figuarts, but more advanced than some basic figures. The idea is they're about 20 bucks a piece, and they are more of in that Marvel Legends Black Series style, though a lot cheaper. Anime Heroes is a spin-off of that, focusing on other anime characters like Naruto, or One Piece, or Bleach, etc., and these are pretty solid figures. And I wanted to talk about these, because a lot of times when it comes up, people are like, oh, look at the SH Figuart is so much better than the Anime Heroes. And it's like, yeah, the SH Figuart is also 3 to 4 to 5 times the price of an Anime Heroes figure. And this isn't going to be any, sort of dissuasion of criticism of these figures. I want to talk about each of them one by one, to talk about what's good and what's bad about each of them, and give you an idea of what Anime Heroes One Piece really is, because I feel like a lot of people dismiss this line despite it having some really great figures in it. So we're going to go approximately in the order they came out, if I can remember what order they came out exactly. I don't know for sure. But we're going to go through each figure one at a time, give you some size comparisons, give you some details, and talk about which I think are the best and which aren't. And if that video sounds like something you want to watch, please hit the like button before we get too far in, and hit subscribe and the notification bell if you aren't already, to keep up with future videos on this channel. I do One Piece stuff as well as other types of action figures, toys, collectibles, Blu-rays, comic books, and more. Also, for future reference, I am a manga reader, not an anime watcher, so some terminology doesn't make sense to you because the anime dub used a different one or the subs used a different one. I'm using whatever the manga has. It's stuck in my brain. I try to adapt as I can, but I do read the manga primarily. So on that note, let's take a look at the Anime Heroes One Piece line and talk about why it's actually good. Alright, we're going to start with Monkey D. Luffy himself. He is, I think, ostensibly the first figure, as far as I know. He's been released a few different times, so for my release, I just wanted to use the box as an example. I have a later release. This isn't the first release because all of these guys exist, but I think when Luffy came out, it was just Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, I think, were the first three. So there's Luffy. So you can kind of get a shot of him from the anime versus him as a figure and kind of look at some of the comparison there. Now, Anime Heroes, being a Dragon Stars spinoff, I actually think it's a lot better than Dragon Stars. Every Anime Hero figure I've held is better than every Dragon Star I've held. That being said, Dragon Stars is pretty great. The thing I wanted to talk about in this video and why it's like, oh, the One Piece Anime Heroes are actually good, because I think a lot of people dismiss these figures because, oh, they're not like Figuarts. Well, in some ways, these are better than Figuarts, and in other ways, they aren't. That's kind of how it goes. Now, while this isn't like a direct, Figuarts to Anime Heroes comparison, I might do that in the future, there are a couple things about the Figuarts Luffy from the raid on Onigashima, the one pictured here, that aren't as strong as this one, and that's including some of the articulation bits. So let's talk about this. First things first, here's Luffy. Yeah, the face is a little goofy. I think the faces are the thing that throws a lot of people off with the Anime Heroes. And yeah, it's not like super detailed. The eyes are in the eyebrows and the scar, the only thing painted in, and it kind of does have this like 1,000-yard stare going on. But if you've seen a lot of frames of the anime, especially around Fishman Island, where this look comes from, it actually matches pretty good, honestly. Otherwise, paint details, they got the yellow buttons, they got the scar on his chest, which is painted underneath the shirt as well as sculpted in, which is really, really nice. The shirt's an overlay piece, and then, of course, you have his sandals painted in, as well as the little, like, fuzzy parts around his waist, or around his knees, and then the waist piece is a separate piece as well, and his hat here is painted with the red band, of course. So yeah, it's not super detailed, but it's not a super detailed design either. In terms of like a basic Luffy figure, you really can't go wrong with this, though I do have a couple minor complaints. But let's talk about the positives. First things first, articulation. So he's got the full ball range movement at the top of the neck. Shoulders move out on a nice ratchet. He's got ball jointed shoulders so they move around. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbow. He's got a wrist in and out and a swivel. You got a waist swivel here. Hips that actually drop down to kick forward. so you can actually move them more. It's kind of crazy. There's drop-down hips here before a lot of Hasbro figures had them. Then, of course, he has a thigh swivel as well. The knees, I think, are the engineering feat here. Because, see, when the knee's normal like this, it doesn't move that far. But what the knee does is the leg shifts down, and then now the knee double bends, and that allows him to get around the shorts detail. The first Luffy figure art had trouble with this, and then the later Romance Dawn version kind of fixed it with a complicated system. But this is kind of a simple, like, the leg extends down, and then it kicks back, which is pretty handy. And then the ankle's poured back left and right, so he's got a lot of tilt and movement in that. Oh, and you have a extra swivel in there because of the joint that pulls down. You can actually swivel it out. So pretty good, honestly. He's pretty solid. So my only one complaint is that you can't have him wear his hat. It's always around his neck like this. There's no alternate head option. I don't even think you can pop the head off, and even if you can, that's not going to sit on his head. You can kind of squeeze, I think you can kind of squeeze it around. His hair is kind of in the way, but there's just no way for him to wear the hat. It's always going to be on the back. But considering in a lot of action scenes, especially later in the story, he's always wearing the hat around his neck anyways, it kind of does work out. And in terms of accessories, I should say, is he's got his fists, and then he's got some open hands, and then he's got some kind of gripped hands. And I think these grip hands are supposed to be like, so you can have him like this, and then you can pose him where he's doing like the gum pistol startup, because the grip hand would be him kind of gripping his shoulder. It's not going to have, crazy range, but considering the fact that this is, like I said in the intro, a $20 figure, it's pretty dang good. So you got good options there for, there you go. There's his gum pistol startup. And in fact, I don't even know how much articulation range the figure art has over this, because I've heard some of the limitations on the later design Luffy. Now, the only thing you might notice is that the ankles are a little bit worn out. I don't know if this is because I took him traveling around Las Vegas, but he does have a tendency to kind of tip, but he does balance out eventually. So honestly, pretty solid. Like, I think that's the big thing with anime heroes that I don't know if people get, is that they're collector figures, yes, but they're not like high-end collectibles, and they're not trying to be. These are trying to be sort of basic figures, and they're sort of in the caliber of like Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, less so the caliber of like SH Figuarts, which is what a lot of people compare them to. And what's nice is because they give you 6 different hands to work with, you can get some different poses. Again, not perfect, but you can kind of get them into a Gear Second sort of era pose, right? With you got the hand out like that. Pretty good. And honestly, considering, again, how these are $20, sometimes 22, but a lot of stores, if you find them in a practical store, will be $20. You really can't go wrong with a Luffy like this. And that's kind of the ethos of this video. This is not a replacement for an SH Figuarts Luffy. However, it's a pretty good Luffy figure for the price you're getting him for. And I think that's what a lot of people overlook with anime heroes. Now, of course, Luffy isn't the only one in this line, and in fact, I don't even think he's one of the best in this line, so let's take a look at another member of the Straw Hat crew. Alright, next up we have Roronoa Zoro, of course the first mate to Luffy, and of course the infamous pirate hunter. Here's his box. He's from a little bit earlier of a wave than the Luffy release I have. Zoro here is pretty interesting because when it comes down to the way he is designed, it's always been a problem for action figures. So this is, just like with Luffy, the Fishman Island look. This is post-time skip. And he's got this very long, skirt thing in addition to his gi, because this is the Zoro from that era where he's gone more samurai with his look. That also means that he's a little bit more restrictive in articulation because they have to work around this skirt thing. It's the same exact issue that the SH Figuarts Zoro, the Raiden Onigashima, has, except I've also heard that figure has bad QC issues where his waist doesn't hold together, whereas the Anime Heroes isn't going to have that problem because it's built for a little bit different of a demographic. Now, interestingly enough, there is no way to do the 3-sword style with this figure. There's no alternate head. There's no alternate arm with the bandana. And more specifically to this look, there's no alternate torso. And yes, his torso does look a little bit small, I will say. It is a little tiny considering this era of Zoro. But there is a 3-sword style figure that is a partial retool of this that Bandai has released. And that one is pretty cool if you want to have the 3-sword style instead of this style. It actually kind of looks like a better figure overall. Now, I will say, as much praise as I will lob to Anime Heroes, and I don't know how much this is their fault. This is my least favorite figure of the whole line. I think he's definitely the weakest. So let's go through it. First of all, he does come with the 3 swords. Each of these sheaths do have a removable hilt, and they also do pull out of the holster. I'm not going to do that because they're kind of in there as is. His head, I think, looks pretty good. He doesn't have like the 1,000-yard stare that Luffy does. Like I said, his torso seems a little small just because Zoro is so freaking bulky in this era, but you see he does have the chest scar just painted in. He's got the bandana on his arm. The shoulders move pretty good. They actually move out a little bit more than Luffy does. He's got his head joint, his double jointed elbow. He's got his wrist pivot, the waist swivel, and then everything down here kind of sucks because he does have fully articulating legs under here, where he's got a thigh swivel. He's got a little bit of a pull down joint. He has a double jointed knee, and he has a full rotation in the ankle. But as soon as you let go of this, just comes back down slowly but surely and envelops his legs once again. Plastic skirts are like the enemy of a lot of figure design, and I don't know why companies still do it if they've used soft goods before. Anime heroes, they get a pass. They're $20, and they don't really seem to use soft goods. Now, like I said, the hilts do come out of all of these, so you can remove all the hilts. And these the sheaths will pull through if you're not careful, so you're gonna have to kind of line them up, except for the one that has the tassel on it. So you just got to be careful not let these fall right through the other side. But of course, he does come with all 3 swords, and this is the worst part about him. Yikes. So these, I've tried to straighten them out over the time I've gotten the figure. They don't want to straighten out. They're very thin plastic. This one's interesting because the white sword, you know, his iconic third sword, that one feels rigid, and then these other 2 don't feel as rigid, and I think it's because of the extra sculpting on them. But yeah, for whatever reason, I haven't been able to get these swords to straighten out. I don't know if this is an issue with the 3-sword version. Hopefully it isn't, because it would be nice if we had an option. You can have him hold 2 swords, whichever 2 swords you wish for him to hold. In this case, I'm going to have him hold the 2 swords here and not the 3rd one, just because the 3rd one just doesn't... I mean, he does have 1 sword style, which is a move that he uses that 3rd sword only, but we're not going to use that. We're just going to use these 2, and we're going to get the hilt put back on to the 3rd sheath because it keeps falling through the belt. So yeah, this is the one I think is the weakest because he's the hardest to pose around, and he's the hardest to work with. And it's ironic because I did a series of shorts on the Netflix One Piece figure arts, and Zoro is also the weakest of those. It's just, for whatever reason, he is a very hard design to pull off. I'm hoping the upcoming figure arts Romance Dawn Zoro is going to be much better because that is the simpler design of his to use, but we shall see. But there you go. There's your Zoro. He's not the best, that's for sure. Definitely a little bit weaker of a figure than Luffy, but can I say not bad for 20? Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like the 3-sword figure is probably a little bit more striking than this one. Okay, so next we're going to take a look at Sanji, who was also one of the early releases. There's his box. There is he with the others there. Sanji is a little bit easier to pull off design-wise than Zoro because he's just a guy in a suit. But he does need to be able to kick, and luckily his hips drop down, so he does have the ability to kick. Now, his balance is another story. Again, this is a $20 basic figure. This is, of course, the Fishman Island look for Sanji, and we do have neck range, we got shoulder range, we got the ball joint, swivel, the double jointed elbow. These pretty much all have the same articulation range, pretty cool. Wrist swivel, the wrist or the waist articulation, the hips that move out, kick forward, double jointed knee, and then also we have ankles that pivot and move around. The ankles are a little bit more restricted than the other figures, which is a bummer because he's the kicking guy. But he does come with 2 fists, which is kind of weird because Sanji really doesn't punch anything. Those hands are for cooking, not for fighting. But you do get these kind of grip hands, which allow you to do some of his iconic poses. The other interesting part is his feet are removable, so you can pop the foot off, and then you put on the flame effect, which actually plugs in and clips on. And this allows you to have him kind of the pose I always go with is kind of him charging up the flame foot shot. I'm not going to pretend to pronounce the French food pun. But this is kind of like the way that you can have him posed. And honestly, looks pretty good. And considering that, like, the figure arts version of Sanji was the best of the Raid on Onigashima figures. I mean, I guess we can do a side by side. That one is pretty good too. But I think this Sanji's pretty solid. He's not. I would say he's kind of a hard character to make into figure form because it's hard to make him interesting. He's a kicking guy, and kicking is a tricky thing for action figures because they lack the organ displacement and body mass movement that humans have. And a lot of kicking is done in motion, not staying still, which is what, action figures do. But yeah, this is a pretty good figure overall, and I think that once again, the face is pretty good. He's got a pretty good look to him, and then once you balance him on that flame effect, he looks pretty awesome. And honestly, I don't really have too many other complaints. So I'm going in approximate release order. I don't know for sure if this is the way the waves worked out. Just guessing. But Shanks is the next release. Shanks, of course, is the pirate that gave Luffy his iconic hat. It was Shanks' hat, and then it became Luffy's. So Shanks here looks pretty good. This is his post-time skip look. He is also in his, Four Emperors look. This is a really cool look for the character, and it's pretty awesome. There is an SH figure art Shanks, but he's not in this costume. He's in the earlier look. The cool part, too, is that this is a character who has one arm. You can see in there is kind of a stump. It's just mostly there to hold the cape on. But he is still fully articulated. This arm is double jointed elbow. He's got the bicep swivel. He's got the wrist joint. He's got the head joint. Hips drop down, move forward. He's got a double joint knee. It does look a little awkward bent because the way he has the baggier pants. And then his ankles do pivot. Because of the big, heavy plastic cape, though, it is going to be a little bit restrictive. However, this piece of it, the part that's on his arm, that can move pretty good. It's on a ball joint, so you do get some good range. What's also cool is you do get multiple hands. You got the open hand, you get a pointing hand like that, and you get a fist, and then of course a holding hand for the sword. So you get the sheath for the sword, which looks like that. You can pop the handle off to imitate the sword being gone, and then we can slip that in here. It can be a little tricky to fit it because of, again, the big old cape back there. And then we'll just pop the wrist and give him his sword. The sword is definitely a cool piece, and because it's not so thin like the Zoro swords, it actually is thicker and it's not so warped, which is pretty cool. So you got kind of your Shanks is ready to go into battle, looking pretty good. Not too many complaints here. This is, a pretty solid figure, and it's a pretty good figure of Shanks, all things considered. He doesn't get that much merch, I think, because, there's not too many looks for him, so it's nice to see that Anime Heroes did do this version. And it's really well detailed. It looks really good. Once again, the face is much better, and I really do like him. Pretty solid figure. All right, next up, Portgas D Ace, which is Luffy's brother. There he is on the box. He is the only one that's based pre-time skip, which One Piece fans that have kept up with the story understand why this is the look they went with Ace. It is kind of his iconic look, the one he showed up in Alabasta with the shorts, the boots, the lack of shirt. They actually did paint this on the back, the Whitebeard pirate's crest on the back of his back. He's also got the tattoo where it was misspelled AS. It's the ASCE, or the Ace is the ACE, but the S is scratched out. All kinds of little details like that's really impressive, especially like his log pose on his wrist and his bracelet there as well. The Ace, the A belt buckle for Ace. The buckles are all painted as well. These are little details that can easily be skipped by a company who's trying to save some money on paint budget. But I'm going to guess because he has the bare torso, they're like, yeah, we can paint all those details in. The symbol on his hat, all the details on his hat, the smiley face, the frowny face, the beads are a separate piece. It's really nicely done. Even his little knife that I hardly ever remember him actually using, also done well. And overall, pretty nice sculpt on Ace. It captures the look and personality of the character quite well, and he looks pretty good. Yeah, there's going to be an SH Figure Arts one coming up that's probably better, but it also costs like $100. This one was $20. You can't fit the hat on him, just like with Luffy. You would need a separate piece because they both have really big hair. But But you got that kind of hanging back. I think I would have liked the hat on him, just because that's kind of more Ace. I kind of think of him with the hat on. But the cool part, too, is you can just remove the hat. Unlike Luffy, it's not super tied to his waist. Or his neck. Once again, shoulders, bicep, double joint elbow. Like, he's got all the same range anybody else does. They don't have any, like, ab crunches, but they do have these, like, torso ball joints. Just some of them have, like, articulation restrictions due to the design. He has the same thing with Luffy, where the leg shifts down a little bit. So it pulls down a little bit to get around the shorts. The knife pops off sometimes. It is on a ball joint, so it gets out of the way. You got the ankles here that move all the same, but he's got a pretty nice range of articulation. You get a pretty good set of hands. He can do his like little fire pistol move, so you can have that kind of pose like this. You can have him ready to draw it or firing it like that, which is pretty cool. You can also use this as kind of like a cool salute type thing. If you want to have him do like flame commandment, you have the kind of grippier hands for some of his moves as well. And also of note, this is a separate piece on the wrist, so don't lose it. So you can do some of the different poses with him. You can kind of have him where he's gonna like throw fire. You got that option, and then the fist for flame fist, because he has flame fist ace. So pretty cool overall. I think he's pretty solid. Again, for 20 bucks, for even 22, he's a really good figure of Ace. And yeah, okay, of course the figure art's better, but that's an argument that we're having here. I think that for the $20 you pay for this guy, pretty solid. He's also very tall. He's like the tallest figure, and I think it's like appropriate. Ace always kind of seems a little bit larger than life. It would have been nice to see some flame effects, but considering how much painted detail they put on the figure, I'll let that slide, because I think honestly, it just works as the figure himself, and honestly, he's pretty good. Welcome to, I've had this video idea for a while, but had to understand who some of these characters were part of the video. Trafalgar Law. This is not only one of my favorite characters now, but he's a late debut character. Well, everyone's based on post-time skip looks except for Ace. Law here was a pre-time skip introduction, very much right before the time skip, so I had to go further to know what his whole deal was. But Law here, I think, is one of the nicer figures, and I do want to point out something. This is just on my copy, where you can see this paint splotch. That's just kind of a QC error. That's not on all of them. I've seen other ones in stores. I haven't felt like rebuying him. It's not that big of a deal, but it is a little bit sloppy there for the Heart Pirates logo. But Law is such a cool character with such a unique like move set that I'm glad that I waited to do this video until I understood like how his powers worked, because he kind of just seems like Sword Guy when you look at him on the outside. And then you realize what he can do with the whole like room thing with his op fruit powers. He's so cool. And he's got a great backstory as well. This look of Law is an interesting choice for anime heroes to make, because with the other looks we've seen, like I said, they're the Fishman Island looks or post-time skip, they're kind of like the evergreen designs for this era. Whereas this version of Law isn't really in the story much. Manga-wise, he wears this for like a couple pages, and then it's gone. I think in the anime he used it a little bit longer. But this is the sweater from the end of Punk Hazard when they were headed to Dressrosa. But immediately in Dressrosa, he changes to that hoodie look. So this is like not that. It's not like his Dressrosa look. Like he immediately switches, and I don't think he switches back afterward. It's kind of a cold winter thing. That being said, his look during Punk Hazard was the long trench coat. So this kind of makes most sense for anime heroes to tackle. And I can also say this is a better posing figure than the SH Figure Arts Law, which is based on Raid of Onigashima, and he has the giant coat on his shoulders, which works as a cape and also drags the figure down from every video I've seen on him. So pretty solid to have a nice like articulating Law. The other cool part too is that I think the face is done pretty good. I know that like Law has a reputation for being quote unquote the hot one. This isn't living up to it, but it's still pretty good overall. And he does have, even the earrings are painted, which is kind of amazing. He's got his goatee. The hat is painted all the way around with the spots. The symbol, like I said, a little messy on mine. The pants as well have all the spots painted. And then most impressively, the death tattoos on his hands. So not only does he have his symbol, but the letters DEATH are on every hand. And I do mean every hand. The alternate hands also all have it painted on there, and then also on the alternate grip hand there, and then also on the pointing hand there. That is super impressive to me because not only that, you have all of this detail as well. Like, this is, again, a $20 figure, and they did pretty dang good. He also has, like, the most normal, like, articulation scheme. His knees are a little messy because they're just straight cuts. They look a little bit better here like this, but they are just, ooh, they're blocky. But his elbows are pretty good, and of course he does have the waist joint and the drop-down hips and everything. But since Law is more of like a calculating surgeon, because he's a surgeon, you can kind of work with that pretty good. So of course you can have him hold his sword like this, which looks pretty good. Not too warped on it, all things considered. Pretty solid, so you can have him kind of ready to attack with the sword when you're ready for him to do that. But then you can also have him hold the sheath itself, which I think is also pretty cool, because he does that a lot. He kind of has the sword sheathed until he's ready to operate. What's also cool is the hands are specific. Of course, you got the two grip hands, but of course this hand is either up or down for room. So he's got his room, which activates his operating room, basically. You don't really get a hand specifically for chambres or shambles, which is where he can swap the places of things. But this pointing hand, if I can get it on here, but this pointing hand is definitely for tact, which is his third move within, it's room, chambres, and tact. And so you got that going on, so you can kind of have him posed sort of like that if you want. So you can kind of have it where you got the sword in this hand, and then the other finger is doing tact. And that's kind of where he does some of the crazier things he did, especially during Punk Hazard with the Navy. But there you go, you got that going on, and then boom. So pretty cool, and honestly, a pretty solid figure overall, I gotta say. I do think that he turned out pretty nice. It's nice to have a Law that can pose easily. Hopefully we get like a different look of Law in figure art so we can have an even better figure. But I think of the two that exist so far, I think this one's the better one in terms of posability and having fun with an action figure. So I know they say save the best for last, but we're kind of going in order here, so let's talk about the best. It's Tony Chopper. This is one of those figures where it's kind of amazing because even the biggest detractors of anime heroes cannot deny how great this figure is. And also this is amazing because I'm not exactly sure how Figure Arts could top this. So Tony Chopper, of course, is our favorite Dr. Reindeer. He is a tiny little fella, and that means they had to give him a ton of accessories. And the way they made him work is essentially $20 Nindoroid. Yeah, he's got so many cool things. So let's look at the base figure. Let's get his little stand off of him. He does come with a stand because of the nature of Chopper. He's just gonna, yep. So he looks adorable. This is, of course, the Fishman Island look. This has got his blue hat with the pink hat underneath. He's got his antlers here, his little face. He's got his little backpack, his little doctor bag, which is totally removable, actually. If you want, you can actually remove the backpack. Comes right off of him there. And you can see that they not only painted the hat beautifully, the face beautifully, all of the hooves, the bottom of the hooves, the actual shirt is fully painted as well. He does have articulation. He's got ball-jointed head. He's got ball-jointed shoulders, which actually have like an additional ball joint movement that's almost like a butterfly joint. He's got ball-jointed hips as well. He can't quite sit down, but he can still move his little feet around. And then to make sure that he's not only worth the $20 price point, also to make sure he can actually do multiple poses, he comes with a ton of accessories. Look at all this stuff. Okay, so first things first, if you want to have his pose or his facial expression be different, this standard like smiling face can come right out. You can't remove the head. The head is pretty secure on there, but you just pull the faceplate out. Then we can attach a new one in. So here is Serious Chopper, ready to fight somebody like he does, because he is really good at the fighting thing as well. And then if you want that to be different, you can pull this out, and you can give him this really, really cute star-eyed expression, like he's just come up with a great idea, or he's seen some delicious food. And then if you want to go full comedy, you can have Chopper blushing, like anytime someone compliments him. And then to go alongside that, if you pop his little arms out, which I know is horrifying, but we got to do it for the toy, you can pop his other arms in here like this, and this can be a little tricky to pull off, so I apologize if I screw it up. Come on. Yeah. See, he's a tiny little fella. Okay, so once you have that in, you can see he's doing that little that little motion he does when he gets all embarrassed and stuff. It's so cute. And I love that there's like a character-specific thing that's not just like battle mode. Once again, you can swap the arms out for these arms that are straight like this, just straight arms, as opposed to the default arms with the hooves out like that. These are like little straight arms, and this can be useful if you're trying to get him in a battle pose, like if he's serious. So let's see if we can get his serious face on here. Where's it at? There we go. There's serious face. Let's get his backpack on. He needs his gear. He's a doctor. Doesn't mean he won't do harm, but he's also going to do good because he's the best doctor in the world. There we go. We're going to put that on him. So if you wanted to have him in a pose where he's like dramatically pointing someone down, like I'm going to mess you up, you got that option too. And so, yeah, this is by far just the most amazing anime heroes figure. They really outdid themselves. But what I'm going to say, and I don't know if this is controversial, this was the turning point. The other figures, like I said before, are pretty good, but the next few figures are something incredibly special for multiple reasons, not just within the bubble of anime heroes, but within the bubble of One Piece figures and collector figures in general, because Chopper here, well, he may be small for his $20 price, and they loaded us up with accessories and a full instruction sheet to make sure how we can use them. Some other companies could benefit from this. Chopper is not the only impressively amazing figure in this line. So while Chopper may be the best, Franky is the most super. This is really cool. So Franky here, he is of course the big old cyborg, the shipwright of the crew, the one who fixes everything, builds them stuff. He is a massive character. He is absolutely huge, especially in the Fishman Island arc. And onward, he has upgraded himself into full cyborg here. And this is the same exact price as everybody else. He is still a $20 figure. And that is impressive because a lot of companies, including Bandai themselves in the Figure Arts division, will charge more for a much larger character like this. But as you can see next to Luffy, he's pretty big. Now, he is a little bit small. However, there's a thing I'm thinking about here. So compared to the official height chart, Franky is a little bit small compared to Luffy. Once again, $20 for this versus $20 for this. This is a great deal for how much bigger the figure is. However, there is another benefit. The Figure Arts Luffy, I think, is a little bit smaller. So this might be more in scale with the Figure Arts. And same thing with Chopper, where he may be a little small next to Luffy, but might be perfect next to a Figure Art. And we've seen Bandai sort of mix up their lines a little bit, between companies. Like Dragon Stars will make stuff that Figure Arts hasn't, and vice versa. But Franky here doesn't exist in Figure Arts. So pretty great, though, that this is, again, a $20 figure, considering that he's fully new sculpt, big old chunky figure. So, of course, we've got Franky here. He's got his sunglasses up. He's got the short hair. He's got his shirt, which is fully painted, the BF37 on both sides. We'll see why that's important in a moment. You've got the lines and the star here on both. The fingers are painted. All the details are there. There's no detail that I'm like, oh, they missed that, so they could fit the budget. And then on top of that, because of his weird design, they give you a stand. But what's really cool is his articulation range. So he's got a head that's ball jointed. He's got shoulders that move out, shoulders at 360, shoulders that ball joint. You got a bicep swivel, an elbow bend that's a big old ratchet joint. Then you've got wrists that pivot in and out and rotate. You've also got his waist that pivots left and right, hips that drop down, move forward. They have a thigh swivel, a double jointed knee, though it is a very stiff double jointed knee because of the design. It's going to look really awkward. He can't really use it while standing anyways, but he's still got it. And then ankle pivots to balance him out. This, of course, does mean that he does have the articulation range needed to do the iconic pose of Franky where he goes super. So you got the star, the pose that Franky is always known for. It's a little tricky to line it up, but once you do, boom, there it is. Nice and easy. And then on top of that, the stand not only is a stand here, it rotates, which means you can have Franky at the proper angle to be doing his star pose. All right, so then, boom, there it is. That's the closest I'm getting it on camera. You can do the Franky star pose. So this is amazing, and Franky is just an incredible figure for 20 bucks, considering he comes with all this. He comes with so much stuff. Like, the box that he's in is just so heavy. And considering he's in the same size box as everybody else, they filled that package out completely with this figure. So next up we have Usopp. Now Usopp, despite being one of the original Straw Hat Pirates coming in right after Nami, doesn't get as many figures as those other early characters. So Usopp here, kind of a rarity for One Piece figures, but Bandai did do his Fishman Island look to match everybody else, and here he is. And this figure has a couple different things that I really, really like about him. First of all, he does have the 1,000-yard stare. That is almost an Usopp trademark at this point. He does have his hat, his hair, the long nose, of course. He does have his bag, which is a separate piece. If you want to remove it, you just have to like slip it over his head. The armband's painted, all the details in his pants are painted, and he's got a pretty good look to him. He does have Dragon Ball pants, but, you know, they've been doing that a while with Dragon Stars, so he's got the big baggy pants, but they've got kind of a nice natural knee to it. Not amazing, but pretty good. Thigh swivel, hips that pull down, move forward, torso ball joint, shoulders, double jointed elbow, head movement, ankles, all that good stuff. Now, the part about him that I really like, not just that he has a pointing hand, it's the way they did his slingshot. So he does have his upgraded slingshot, of course, but notice this. So with a lot of characters that have projectile weapons like slingshots or with bows like green arrows, Hawkeyes, that kind of thing, they can't put like a string on it without it being considered a projectile, and then it falls into a different category of toy law, like for US toy laws. So you don't ever get like a normal string on a bow and arrow with an action figure that's being sold at retail, because that becomes like a projectile and falls under a different like safety compliance. So the same thing here. Usopp's slingshot can't be like a practical piece. But unlike those other companies like Hasbro and McFarlane and them tend to give Green Arrow and Hawkeye just like bows with strings molded on them straight down like they're in like rest position, Bandai did the smart thing, which I wish these companies would replicate, and give you a slingshot that is in pulled back position. Because this is how you can pose him in an action pose. If the slingshot wasn't pulled back, you'd have to pose him as if he just fired it, which is not as cool or dynamic. So here we got Usopp doing his marksman thing, slingshot fully pulled back. That should not be a revolutionary design idea, but it is, and I really, really appreciate it and wish more companies would do something like this. So good job on Bandai. And yeah, for 20 bucks, you can't go wrong with this Usopp. And hey, you may not have any other choices in the near future. It doesn't seem like Usopp just gets the toys the others do. And now rounding out this batch of figures done in a way that other companies don't, Brook. So Brook here is a big, tall skeleton. Like a very, very tall skeleton guy. And he is one of my favorite figures in the entire line. And honestly, one of my favorite figures, period. So the thing with Brook is that, much like Mr. Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas, a character that's gotten so much merchandise that it's hard to even keep track of it all, he is a very tall, thin skeleton. And making a tall, thin skeleton work in an action figure form is incredibly difficult for sake of balance and stability, and also making sure he's not too fragile. And somehow, in all the years of me buying Jack Skellington figures, not a single one of them feels as good as Anime Heroes Brook. And that is why I love this figure, because it actually figured out how to make a big, tall skeleton feel stable and not like he's going to snap. Like, these limbs actually feel sturdy. They actually feel like they have some weight to them. It doesn't feel like if I bend the knee, it's going to break. And in fact, he can bend the knee. Look at him. He's fabulous. He's the Soul King. Look at that. He is so articulated. So we got the ball jointed head, which of course is a little bit restricted because of his collar. The actual boa collar is articulated as well, so it moves out of the way. Shoulders, full range, bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, ball jointed wrist. You gotta like be careful it doesn't pop out too much. Waist swivel, ball jointed waist, hips that drop down and kick forward and back, thigh swivel, double jointed knee, and then full ankle pivot. So you can pose this guy into some wacky, wacky poses, and I don't feel like anything is going to happen to him that would happen to a Jack Skellington. I never had a Jack Skellington figure that feels as good as this, and I'm really, really impressed they pulled this off. And then to top that off, balance. So balance is tricky with a giant, tall, thin skeleton, as we were just talking about, especially one wearing a crown and a boa collar. But you know what? If you get him in an action pose and you do it just right, it's going to be tricky because you got to make sure he's like totally balanced out. It's not impossible. It is not completely stable. I'm not going to lie to you all. There we go. Boom. Completely unsupported, tall, thin skeleton doing an action pose. There you go. He is posable. He is workable. You can do stuff with him. He's not a static, fragile statue. Thank goodness. I love this. Another one of those figures that, like, Figure Arts hasn't done, but I also don't know if Figure Arts could do any better, just like when it comes to, like, Chopper. He does come with alternate hands here, and he does come with his fish guitar. And his fish guitar is pretty awesome, and you can have him kind of pluck away at the fish guitar. The interesting part about the wrists is they don't fall out here, but you have them here, they kind of move like this, but you pull them out, they have a lot more range. He doesn't come with a cane sword or anything, but that's honestly fine, because I think the guitar is a little bit cooler and fits the whole Soul King vibe. And you can have him posed with the guitar standing like that. And in fact, it actually helps his balance because it just gives him a little bit more weight in a different position. But there you go. There is Brook. Absolutely one of my favorite figures in this line. And anytime I see anybody say that all the One Piece anime heroes are bad, they clearly haven't looked at Brook, Franky, Chopper, or even Usopp, because I think all four of these back-to-back, pretty fantastic figures. And that brings us to Sabo. Sabo is Luffy's other brother, and he is the newest character in the One Piece Anime Heroes line. The other figure that came out that I haven't mentioned is the Dressrosa version of Luffy, which from the waist up is, for most of the figure it's the same, but they changed the arms and then the shirt to give him the Dressrosa sunflower look. But this is Sabo, and Sabo is the other reason this video took a while. I've had him for months, but I didn't really know Sabo that well. And then the way he got introduced in the manga made it so that it took me a while to get to the introduction of Sabo. But here he is, and he looks great. Yes, he's got the 1,000-yard stare, but you know what? So does his anime design. That guy has big eyes. So it fits. It looks good. He's got his goggles well painted, his hat, his collar. This is all an overlay piece on top of his body. He has improved on the weird-looking baggy pant legs. Usopp very much used the Dragon Ball style. This is a much cleaner style. I think Dragon Stars started using, or if they haven't, they should. He looks pretty good. He's only missing like one paint app, which is a little buckle on his arm, but it is molded in, and looks pretty solid overall. His pipe does store on his back here. It does clip into place, so you can have him carry it around, which is pretty nice, and he looks pretty good. So he is part of the Revolutionary Army. I did forget to mention he does have the scar behind his eye, which is really cool. And this is his debut look. This is the way we saw him initially in Dressrosa, and then he has a later look, which SH Figure Arts just recently announced for him, which luckily has a removable cape, unlike Law. So this is actually our first articulated Sabo figure, from what I know, or at least in this scale, and it's pretty cool. Different hands-wise, he does come with two different gripping hands for the pipe, and then he does come with two different Dragon Claw hands, which is one of his techniques. So you got kind of like the Dragon Claw thing going on. And then also he does have, of course, like I said, his pipe, so you can have him kind of posed ready to fight with the pipe, or kind of have it back so you can use the Dragon Claw. But he poses pretty dang well. Also, you know, considering that all the improvements made with Brook and Franky and Chopper and all that, that wasn't lost on what I would call a normal body proportion type. I think he's actually quite improved from the previous figures, and honestly, he is one of the best figures of the line, and does make me want more figures in the Anime Heroes One Piece line. That's not just variants, and I think it's pretty awesome overall, and pretty solid figure. I think I'm pretty impressed with Sabo, and I like the character, and I'm happy that this figure exists. So height-wise, with the Straw Hat Pirates, instead put them all together like this. You can see that Zoro and Sanji about the same height, Luffy and Usopp about the same height, and they're a little bit shorter than Zoro and Sanji. And then, of course, Brook is the tallest, Franky's a little bit shorter than that, and then Chopper's the little tiny one. We're going to use Luffy as our test subject for the rest of the height comparisons. So if you're wondering a figure's comparison in height related to Luffy, the rest of these guys won't be showing up, but Luffy will. So if it's close to Luffy size, then it's close to Luffy size across the board here. Okay, so then for the other four figures, being Ace, Sabo, Shanks, and Law, you can see they're a lot taller than Luffy. You can see that Law and Zoro are closer in height, but Law is just a little bit taller. And then kind of they're all a little bit taller. Sabo is a little bit shorter, but his hat makes him taller. And then I kept Brook here for comparison of who's the tallest out of the whole line. But kind of interesting, they do run about the same size scale, all things considered. All right, so here we have Luffy. with the anime heroes Naruto from Naruto Shippuden and the Dragon Stars Gogeta from the Dragon Ball Z movies. So you can kind of see that Luffy is a bit taller than Naruto, about the same height as Gogeta. Gogeta just got taller hair. But that's kind of the scaling between the Bandai America anime lines. And as you can see with the SH Figuarts Gogeta from the Broly movie and the SH Figuarts Naruto from Naruto Shippuden, Luffy does look a little bit tall. That's because Figuarts scale a little shorter than anime heroes and Dragon Stars, which as you can see between the previous comparison and now. Now Figuarts of course have a lot more articulation, more detail, and more accessories because they are 3 to 4 to 5 times the price of an anime heroes. But there's your size scaling in case you're wanting to mix lines together. And then here's the contemporaries in the action figure market: Hasbro's Marvel Legends Spider-Man, Hasbro's G.I. Joe Classified Series Techno Viper, and Hasbro's Star Wars Black Series Ahsoka Tano. You can see that this is kind of the size scaling that anime heroes and Dragon Stars kind of shoots for, because this is the competing market, the $20 to $25 figure range. And here's a comparison with the only SH Figuarts Luffy I have, which is the live action one. I don't know how it scales to the anime one, but maybe that'll be a video in the future when I get some more anime One Piece Figuarts. So I hope throughout all this you have come to a new appreciation of the Anime Heroes One Piece line, or affirmation that you do think it's good for those that have been collecting it like me. Honestly, these figures are pretty solid. There are some clunkers. Zoro is a clunker. Sanji isn't perfect. Luffy could use some work. But for the most part, these are pretty great. I think Shanks and Law are pretty solid. I think Sabo's really good. And of course, the 4 that make, the line even better is Chopper, Usopp, Brook, and Franky. Those are by far the best figures in the line. I just hope that this line continues going. I know there's a couple variants I don't have, the Dressrosa Luffy and the 3-Sword Zoro. But hopefully the next figure is a new character, because one of the biggest complaints, and the one that I'm going to talk about now, where are the women? There's no Nami, there's no Robin, there's no Boa Hancock, there's no Perona, there's no female characters in the line whatsoever. Now, that being said, there is complications with that. They've been doing Fishman Island arc looks for the Straw Hats. Well, here's Robin and here's Nami. They are not in the most action figure friendly looks, and especially action figure on the shelf at Walmart and Target looks, which is where these figures primarily go to. Now, if they do earlier versions of Robin and Nami, they could probably do those in Anime Heroes, but they won't match with the others. So Bandai's probably in a little bit of a holding pattern, but they need to figure it out. That does not give Bandai an excuse. They made Sakura for Naruto. They have made female characters for Dragon Ball. It is, we need to finish out the main Straw Hat crew with Nami and Robin in some form. And then we also need Jinbei, which again may be tricky because he's even bigger than Franky. So we are still missing 3 members of the Straw Hat Pirates, but we will see if Bandai can work that out in the future. I would like to see something happen. They have retail partners online. If Nami and Robin need to be an exclusive 2-pack, I don't think anybody would mind doing that. So that is pretty much it for the line as it stands, which is time of recording September 2024. So if there's more that have come out since I filmed this video, then we will talk about them in the future if this video was successful. And if you enjoyed this and you want to tell me you enjoyed it, please hit the like button if you haven't already. It helps me know that this video was something you wanted to see. Hit the comments down below, give me any of your thoughts, opinions, and things about the line. Keep it civil, keep it reasonable. We don't have to fight over it, it's just toys. Also, subscribe to the notification bell if you haven't already. Plus, you can check out our Monday live streams on this YouTube channel every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We go over all kinds of toy news, comic news, Blu-ray news, all kinds of good stuff, including any new Anime Heroes announcements for One Piece and other lines. You can also join our Discord server in the link below. Come discuss, hang out, talk. We have a great community growing there. And of course, you can join as a channel member to help support the channel directly. You can get perks like early access to videos, member exclusive live streams, and other cool benefits. Hit the join button down below for more details while we give a special shout out to some of our channel members. Special shout out to all our channel members, including our Captain Tier, Spin-54, Toma K, Masterbin95, Jamie's World, Forever 1000, Easy2727, Philippe Ceruno, Star Warrior Robbie, Gustav, Cameron Meter, Has Been Hotel and More, Isabella Lawrence, Digital Realm, Stay at Home Meatbag, Kyle, BJ Wan Lund, Vangel Giorgio, Josh Frisch, Chubby Potato 153, Uncaged Otaku. Thank you all for your support. If you so wish, you can find me across most social media platforms at Soundout12, though I am more active on our Discord server than I am there. And you can find my awesome graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643 and Hero Club at HeroClub.com for news, interviews, reviews, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, see you on the Grand Line.